Welcome on to the show tonight, guys. It's Studio 321. This is your host, Eddie B. So tonight we're going to talk about the Iraq War versus what would be the Iran War. There's a lot of similarities, I feel. I'm kind of skeptical about some things. It makes me a little uneasy. We're going to talk about that. What would it be like fighting the war with Iran? We're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, guys, make sure you subscribe to my channel, like my videos. If you subscribe, it's free, but it helps spread the word. So, man, smash that subscribe button, hit the notification. So anytime I do a video, you get the new video. So anyways, here we go. So again, I'm always talking about I'm a history buff. We're going to go back a little bit on Iran's history with the United States so that some people can understand that don't really follow this stuff. Okay, so in the 70s, Iran was kind of like a westernized country in the Middle East, very modernized, heading in that direction. Sharia law was not in place, in any, it wasn't mandated, we'll call it, in place in Iran, and it looked like a westernized country. Women running around in dresses, and it just looked like a modern country. 1979 comes, you have the Iranian Revolution. It was basically the Ayatollah Khomeini and they brought that Sharia law type of government back into place. It's a, Islamic principles government, very strict. The women had to go back to coverings and all that stuff again, just a different type of government. Okay. They don't believe in Western influence at all. And, that's whatever. In their region, they don't like Israel. They're basically sworn enemies of Israel. They have stated many times publicly that if they ever, that Israel shouldn't exist. And if they got the chance, they would wipe Israel off the map. Okay, so that kind of sets the stage. Now you can see why we're always so worried about Iran getting nuclear weapons. Now, they don't have them yet. They have been on a slow process of developing nuclear weapons for, I'm going to say, the last 20 years. So every election, it's, there's a battle in the United States. And we're always trying to make deals with Iran to slow down their production of nuclear weapons, because we feel, and Israel feels, that if they do obtain nuclear weapons, that they will use them on Israel. Now, that would be insane, because if they did do that, Israel has nukes as well, and they're backed up by us. So if they were to nuke Israel, Iran would be wiped off the map. And they know it. The leaders know it. But here's the problem. They are Islamic extremists. And sometimes it's like a suicide bomber to them. They don't care. Because if those extremist leaders got a chance to wipe Israel off the map, they would gladly die for it. And I'm pretty sure I could say that's a fact, okay? So that's why there's this great fear, and especially, in Israel. Netanyahu has said, years and years, there's no way they could ever allow Iran to get nuclear weapons, because they know they would be the first target. And since they're so close in proximity to each other over there, it wouldn't even have to be a missile type situation. You could truck one across the border. I mean, there's just a lot of bad things that could happen if a country like Iran had nuclear weapons against a country like Israel. Because there's a very strong possibility that they would go ahead and use them on them, and knowing that they would be destroyed and not even care. Okay, because you got to remember, now if you asked all the people over there, would they care? Of course they would. But, the citizens, it's always the innocent people that die from junk that the government does anyways. So now you understand why we're so concerned about them getting nuclear weapons. It's not for safety of the United States. And anybody that tells you that, they're full of crap, And I'm going to call out Lindsey Graham. That's number one, always doing that same stuff. Yeah, the United States' safety, it's at risk. It's not, okay? They number one, if they develop nuclear weapons, they would only be able to use them in their own region, because they're going to be ages behind us. They would have basically like crude weaponry. It wouldn't be like ours. Our missiles can travel all over the world. Um, they're the most advanced nuclear weapons, on the planet. They're not going to have those type. Okay, so they could definitely use them on Israel if they developed it, but that's about it. Okay, they're not using them on us, so our safety is not at risk. But guys like Lindsey Graham, they want to, and Mark Levin. Even though I love Mark Levin, he's hyping this up because again, I know he supports the Jewish state, but he's ridiculous right now. So, anyways, so here's the problem. Okay, they get nukes, they can take out Israel. Okay, and they probably would. So here we are today. Trump is threatening them, basically surrender, turn over all the nuclear research. We're gonna send in teams. They'll dismantle your facilities, and then that'll be the end of it. You won't have any more nuclear research. Okay, Iran doesn't want to do that. Now, why is that? Okay, Iran is in a tough spot. Their leadership knows that they can't stop the United States, and really they can't stop Israel, and Israel because Israel's backed up by the United States. Okay, now if they turn over all their research and they just basically dissolve their nuclear program, then that puts them at risk for invasion. It does. That's what happened to Gaddafi, and he was killed. Okay, so they know that. So now they're in a position where do they give up their nukes and make themselves weaker so any country from the West that wants to come in and do a regime change and get rid of their leadership could do that, no problem. Okay, that's one problem they have. The other problem they have is if they continue with the research, either they end up at war with Israel or at war with us, and then they have a regime change anyways. So what they're basically trying to do is they're trying to preserve their own power in Iran, because what will happen is we would go in and just wipe out the leadership, and they know that. Okay, the Iranian people actually, a lot of them don't even support their own leadership, so a lot of them would be happy, but it still would be a mess, and still a lot of people would get killed. So they're in a very tough situation. So this is my opinion, and I've been watching this for a long time, for years, really. And look, there is legitimate gripes with Iran. There is, man. They've been a thorn in our side for 30 years. When we were fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, they were sending in a lot of weapons, a lot of IEDs, a lot of the booby trap stuff that was killing our soldiers were made in Iran and imported for that war to use against us. And we knew that, and that was pissing us off. It pissed our military off. I read a lot of stories about that. A lot of these, they had some advanced IEDs that they were making that were really hurting some of our tanks and our warfighting vehicles. And those were made in a factory in Iran. So fast forward to now. What do we do about this? Well, if we actually don't want to go to war, because look, most of the United States now and Donald Trump got elected on the idea of let's stop getting involved in everybody else's wars. Okay, we're constantly fighting wars. Like if you think about it, we're really the only country in the world that does that. We seem to go from conflict to conflict to conflict to conflict. Look at them, right? I mean, you got Afghanistan and Iraq. You've got what we're doing now. You go back. You got Vietnam. You got. I mean, you got. It's just every 10 years we're in something somewhere invading somebody for some reason. Okay. Now, I know some of it was to do good and whatever, but look, there's you could make up a million reasons to fight in wars. You really could. So I think America's tired of that. They don't want us getting involved in more wars. Now, the other half of America is like, look, we got to defend Israel, and that's understandable too, right? So what is the situation that could, in my mind, appease both sides of that coin? I think this is what we should do. And I've thought about this for a long time, and I think I've said this in the past. I think we should go ahead and supply Israel with the bunker busters that they need to take out the nukes. And I think we should do it now before we go any further. I mean, when I say take them nuke sites out, I'm talking about, and again, if you don't know this, their nuclear facilities are underground. Their development facilities are underground. Some of them are like up to, I guess, like up to a half mile underground, concrete fortified, blah, 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 right? We have the equipment to take them out. That's a fact. It's already been talked about. It's our bunker busters. We have the most advanced, bunker busters in the world. They're designed to, their missiles drop from like a B-1 bomber. If you haven't seen them, you can look at videos on them online. They're insane. They're like a drill bit almost. They hit the ground at super velocity. They drill down into the earth and they explode at a certain depth. And it's made to take out underground bunkers. That's why they call it a bunker buster. Okay? Now, on these underground facilities, it might take multiple hits. In other words, you might have to send 4 or 5 bunker busters in a row to the same facility. One digs a hole, boom. Next one goes in, digs a deeper hole, boom. Next one goes in, digs a deeper hole, boom. Pretty soon you're down where you need to be at the depth, boom, and it's over with, okay? But the point is, we can get rid of these facilities. I think we should go ahead and do it. Do it now before this escalates into a ground war, because think about it, okay? The call for war is because of their nuclear development program. If we take out their nuclear development program, then there is no more call for war. And if there is a call for war in the United States, then you're going to find out that it was never really about the nuclear development program. You see what I'm saying? You're going to flush out the real reasons, because if that nuclear development program is the real reason, then once we destroy it, then it should be all, hey, we're done. We're done here. No ground war between Israel and Iran, none of that. That would actually save the most lives. Just go ahead and just decimate those nuclear sites so they're never usable for the next 50 years. That's the answer, okay? Because if we don't do that, it's just going to escalate into a ground war between Israel and Iran. And then we're going to be, doing the same thing we're doing in Ukraine. We're going to be supplying all the money, all the weapons. Then half of the United States is going to want to get in the fight. The other half isn't going to want to get in the fight. Then all these extremists in the Middle East are going to be going to side with Iran, crossing the border, fighting against Israel. It's going to be a mess. It will. And you have to remember, Iran has a bigger army than Iraq did, okay? We pretty much had our way with Iraq, and we would probably pretty much have our way with Iran because, we own the skies over Iran. They don't have the air defenses to stop us. But the point is, it would be a bloody mess, right? Go ahead, drop the bunker busters in there, take them nuclear sites out, and then you look at Iran and you go, okay, what's next? Now it's your turn. What are you going to do? Now, certain people say, oh, well, that'll drive Iran, insane, and they'll start terrorist attacking, doing this, doing that. Well, the truth is, for the last 30 years, they've already been supporting all that anyway, so it's not going to change any of that, okay? They've already been doing that over in the region. They're not ever going to be able to come to the United States and do anything to us unless it's a terrorist attack on a small scale. But on a large scale, they can't do anything to us. Take out the sites now. Now, this is what I think will happen. If we do that, okay, Trump is going to make his base happy because we don't have to go to war. He's going to solve the problem of the last 20 years of everybody worrying about Iran getting nukes, okay? Israel will be able to relax because they don't have to worry about getting nuked. But, again, remember what I said. If that does not stop the calls for war in the United States, then you're going to have to wonder why that is. Because then what you have is another weapons of mass destruction fraud, just like Iraq. See, if you remember, we invaded Iraq because George W. Bush and the intel agencies all said, oh, he's got weapons of mass destruction. He's going to take us all out. Of course, everybody believed the hype. We went in there, found out there was no weapons of mass destruction. And then we went into Afghanistan after that. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. To prevent all of this drama and war, take those nuclear sites out. Do it now, right now. And then you can sit back and say, hey, we're done here, folks. Did our job. You're safe, Israel. We're safe. Iran, it's your move. And Iran ain't going to do nothing. They ain't going to do nothing. Look, when Israel attacked them recently, if Iran really wanted a war, they would have launched a ground attack against Israel. They would have. If they wanted to go to war, they would have already declared war and they already started fighting. Yes, they're shooting missiles back and forth, trying to look tough, just trying to look like they'll stand up for themselves. But they don't want a war, because an all-out war, they know, is going to end with their leadership gone. The Ayatollah Khomeini, all those guys, they'll be gone, and they know it. They don't want a war. But we got to take out those nukes. And we take them out, we will actually prevent the war. So, President Trump, do it now, man. Get them bunker busters on a plane. Let's get them over there and put some holes in the ground. But anyways, guys, if you like my video, please like and subscribe. This is Eddie from Studio 321. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.